So welcome everybody who is here with us today. I'm really happy to have you back. And today we're actually going to be talking about how to generate more job opportunities and how to generate the best or the right job opportunities for your job search. And the reason why I have this, this slide up here is just to remind us about, this is from our first workshop, the path to job search, to remind us about some of the ways that we can shorten our job search path. Sorry, not the path to job search, but the path to a job offer. These are the ways that as job seekers, we can shorten our path to getting a job offer. So one of the first ways is by being very clear about what is it that we're looking for in terms of the job title, industry, and specialization, right? So I know of the people who are with us today, for example, Tariq is a marketing professional and his industry is consumer goods. And it sounds like from our last conversation with him that his focus or his specialization is brand development or brand marketing, right? So that's where some of his core skills are. So it's not so easy to choose exactly the right job title, specialization, and industry, because we shouldn't be basing it on what we did in the past in our former country. We really need to make sure that when we say a specific job title to an employer in Canada, the skills that are implied under that job title to the employer in Canada are the ones that you have, right? So Fatima, right, you're looking to be an immigration consultant, am I right?
Yes, yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah, right. And so, I mean, that's a pretty straightforward job title, right? Immigration consultant. There are not a lot of job titles when it comes to immigration consulting. There's not 20, there's maybe 2 or 3. And so there's not a lot of diversity of job descriptions for an immigration consultant. But in marketing, there's so many job descriptions, right? Marketing analyst, marketing coordinator, marketing advisor, marketing manager, and all of their job descriptions are not the same. They're different. So when you pick that job title that you're going to be using to lead your job search, you have to make sure that you have all the skills that a Canadian employer would assume you have when you use that job title. That's why in our second workshop, Know What You're Looking For, we looked at the National Occupational Classification in order to identify some of those core competencies that a Canadian employer would assume under a specific job title. So this was in order to validate that the job title you chose is the right one for you, because you have the skills that the employer is looking for under that job title. And so all of the workshops that we do in this essential job search skills series are about shortening the path to the job offer, are about choosing the most efficient and the shortest possible path to getting a job offer, and not just that, getting the best job offer for you in Canada, and usually as your first job in Canada. So, so at this point, you should have a good idea of what is the job title that you're looking for. And if there's any specialization that you have related to that job title. So for Tariq, it's brand management or brand marketing, for example. For Mark, we don't know yet because he's still in school and he's still kind of deciding on his specialization, right? Or we had with us for a few of the workshops so far, we had Snejana, and Snejana focused on IT, quality assurance, right? So quality assurance analyst in IT is the job title, but her specialization could be either towards mobile apps or towards certain type of testing or testing of certain types of applications. And her industry is very important. Her industry, you know, what type of industries has she applied her QA analysis skills in IT towards? So IT is not exactly the industry, because QA analysts usually test software, and the software itself can belong to a specific type of industry, right? So it could be financial industry, for example. Okay, so I'm just, again, illustrating that by now, you ideally have those three things more or less nailed down. And sometimes it's not just one set of three things. It's not just one job title, one specialization, and one industry. It can be three of those. So we had Seyhan with us, who is a lecturer and a professor in cultural anthropology, right? The path to working again as a professor in cultural anthropology is going to be fairly long. It's a long-term goal for her, and she needs to work now in a field that uses her skills. So one of the industries in which she has decided that she can use her skills in anthropology is media planning, right? So she's got her industry as media planning, completely different from post-secondary industry where she worked before. And then she now needs to choose the job title, the right job title for her to use her skills from anthropology within the media planning industry. Right? So that's just one way she can leverage her skills in the short term to use her skills in a specific job title, industry, and specialization, which are different from what she's done before, but still use her skills. But she doesn't have to have just one of those options. She can generate more than one of job titles, industries, and specializations in which she can use her skills. She may need to do some additional skill training in order to fill in the gaps that there might be. So she has maybe 60% of the skills from her previous experience, but may need to gain another 20–30% through some more up-to-date training related to that specific job title, industry, and specialization that she's sort of looking to transition and leverage most of her existing skills towards. Okay? So again, here I'm just illustrating sort of like different ways and different scenarios how you would identify that job title, industry, and specialization. As one of the main ways to shorten your path to a job offer is really being very clear in specific terms about what is it that you're looking for, and knowing that you have the skills to do that job. The other way was to increase your access to knowledge and power by learning about the employers in your industry, and so knowing what problems employers in your industry have. So we talked about some of the ways of doing this in the workshop on Friday. The importance of knowing who are the employers in your industry, right? Who are they? The number of employers that exist in your industry in this geographic region, Toronto, maybe Ontario or Southeastern Ontario. And so the number of employers, the size of those companies, and what the focus is of those companies, on what kinds of services or products, given the global nature of the economy and given that Canadian economy is specialized. So when we provide services and products, we don't provide them across the range. We provide the ones that we can best compete in the global economy. So for your industry, what are those services and products that are most represented on the Canadian market in your geographic region? And then we also talked about the importance of controlling your job search numbers. The more opportunities you uncover, the more right opportunities you uncover, the shorter your path to the job offer. And so that's what today's workshop is really about, is how can we find the best and the biggest number of best opportunities to apply to. Because again, going back to the very first slide I shared in this workshop series, to generate that one job offer, we need to have a number of job interviews. And to get that number of job interviews, we need to submit a number of applications, a slightly bigger number of applications. And in order to submit those applications, we need to make sure that we find the opportunities to which to apply. So this is about how to find those opportunities and how to find as many of the right opportunities. And so I'm going to go to another presentation from actually our day 2. And here, and I have a chat. Okay, great. Welcome back, Danila. Okay. So we've just reviewed sort of what we're doing today and why with respect to shortening the path to the job offer. And so today, instead of starting by actually showing you how to look for job opportunities, we need to step back for a minute and then think about what's going to happen when you apply for a job, right? So before you, well, after you apply for a job, let's see, that has been posted. So this is all assuming that a job has been posted somewhere online. At this point, the employer is inundated with job applications. And we talked about the average number of applications that an employer receives for almost any job that's posted in today's market. Now, the numbers were high before coronavirus and they are higher now, right? So we said about 500 applications on average that an employer receives after they've posted a job. So you might apply for a job, but if you think about it from the employer's perspective, they have a big job ahead of them. Now they have 500 applications to sort through and to choose 5 to 10 candidates. So they really are approaching it as how many people can we eliminate from this pile of 500 applications. So how do they do that? Well, they use something called application tracking systems, first of all. No human being is going to go through 500 applications. When I started my career as a job search coach, yes, somebody had to go through those 500 applications, but no longer. So we have software, it's pretty simple software that basically scans resumes for keywords. And it scans resumes for, so this is really important. First of all, the ATS, the applicant tracking systems do not scan cover letters. They only scan resumes. And what they look for in resumes are technical skill keywords. And they look exactly for the same wording that the employer put in the job posting, but only for the wording of technical skills. They do not search the resumes for soft skills. So that's important to know. So what happens when that, pile of 500 soft files is put through the applicant tracking system? The resumes for those exact keywords of technical skills, and then reduces that pile to a much smaller number. That means that resumes that are not targeted, resumes that are not for that job, and you wouldn't believe how many resumes that are actually submitted are written for a completely different job than the one that they are being submitted for. This is just because people generally, job seekers, don't have great job search skills. And unfortunately, still, a lot of job seekers still are going for quantity over quality. And so they're sort of playing like Russian roulette, or they're doing like a shot in the dark. I'm just going to send my application and see what happens. And it doesn't take long to just click submit, right? So employers actually get a lot of irrelevant applications. And so the ATS just sets those aside and may give a hiring manager a pile of 150 applications that have some of the keywords that were mentioned in the job posting, and it would rate them, and it would it would present the application with the most or the highest percentage of keywords at the top. So this is your strongest candidate, right? Or this is these 10% of the applications are your strongest candidates, and then we have, the next 30% don't have as many keywords but have some of them, right? And so that file now ends up on the hiring manager's desk. And here is where the cover letter also comes into consideration. So the manager, now the human being, and usually it is not HR. It's not HR. HR does not generally review applications. They put together the job posting, they do a job analysis, they make sure that the job description is accurate, they make sure that the compensation is in line with company policies. They have many other jobs, but they don't select the candidates for the interviews. Generally, that is what the hiring manager does. And it's because they are the ones who really can do the best job of assessing who are the best candidates to interview. Interviews are time consuming. They're going to take quite a bit of time. You know, each interview is about an hour, up to 2 hours. So if a hiring manager is going to interview, 10 people, that's 20 hours of their time just sitting in the interviews, never mind scheduling the interviews, coordinating with other colleagues that may be in the interviews. It's a lot of time. And it's usually time away from their core responsibilities. So while they're in interviews, other work is piling up. So in order to make sure that they're selecting the best people that really are likely not going to be a waste of their time, it's the hiring manager who really is in the best position to do that. And so your application, if it has gone through the ATS, is going to end up in front of a hiring manager, and that person is also going to pay attention to your cover letter. And this is where the cover letter is important. You might get in front of the hiring manager, but you will not probably get an interview if your cover letter is not well written for the job you've applied for. But still, out of 150 or 100 or even just 50 applications, the hiring manager looks to select really 10, maximum 10 best applications of people to interview. Now keep in mind, I didn't say best candidates to interview. I said best applications. Because at this point, that's all the hiring manager has in front of them. They don't see the person. And they don't know who actually is the best person for the job. They are selecting the person who looks the best on paper. And that's why it is so important to have the absolute best possible application you can have for a job. Because even if you are actually the best candidate, but your application is not strong, you won't get an interview. It's your loss, it's the employer's loss as well, but that's just unfortunately what the job search game is like. So even the best candidate has to make sure that they look the best on paper in order to be selected for that interview. In this very, very competitive process of applying for jobs that have been advertised and therefore are going to have, hundreds of people applying to them. So I mentioned this because we have to keep the end goal in mind when you're applying for jobs. And your end goal is actually not to get an interview, it's to get a job offer. So before you click submit, you should do your utmost best that you can to towards that goal of getting a job offer. So therefore, we're just going to fast forward to job interview for a second, okay? So this is what happens when after you apply for a job, but now let's imagine that you were actually been invited for a job interview. So you have applied. So first of all, you found an opportunity. We'll talk about how to do that in a minute. And then you applied, you put together an amazing application, and you were selected for the interview. So at the end of that interview, the employer will have all the information they need to actually make a decision about who to offer the job to. And so we need to understand the interview process from the employer's perspective. In the interview, which by the way is not a test, so just giving you a bit of a heads up, culturally, interviews are really structured conversations. They are professional, structured conversations, but they are a conversation in which an employer seeks to find whether the candidate can do the job, okay? Whether they understand what needs to be done and why. Whether they want to do the job, whether they will actually do the job, what the odds are that they will, is there anything that's going to prevent them from actually doing the job, and whether they will fit into the team. So the employer is looking to assess the likelihood of these 5 things, with number 1 obviously being the key of key importance. For most jobs, for entry-level jobs, whether you can actually do the job maybe of a slightly less importance, because how does employer determine whether you can do the job or not? The way they determine that is by assessing whether you have the technical skills to do the job. In other words, to carry out the main duties of the job. And we already submitted the application, and we already made sure that we passed through the ATS system, so there are technical skills in our resume, right? So the employer is already assuming, yeah, this person should be able to do the job because I can see in their resume that they've used the skills that I'm looking for. So if they have those technical skills, chances are they'll be able to do the job, right? So your ability to do the job is extremely important, but the employers kind of already bought into it at the interview stage, because that's what your application was selected. That was the basis on which the ATS selected your application from a pile of applications. The hiring manager verified that when they reviewed your application with their human eyes. And also, so you know, they're like 50%, 60, maybe 70% convinced, yeah, this person looks like they can do the job. But that's not enough. They're also looking for somebody who not just has the core technical skills, but kind of has a good understanding of why this job needs to be done. What are the goals of this job? What are the barriers in being able to do this job? Or what are some of the challenges that a person in this position might experience in getting their job done, and why those challenges exist? So that's where all that understanding of the employer that we talked about on Friday comes in. They're looking in the interview to assess whether you get the bigger picture, whether you understand the industry, whether you understand who they are, what kind of company they are, and who their competition is, who their clients are, what's different about their products and services. And because that kind of understanding will enable you to add value, right? Not just to do the job. Like, you know, all these robots that are being introduced into the workplace can do the job. They can't add value. You need to be a human being to add value. That means you have to understand why something needs to be done. What goal is it trying to achieve? And you can innovate, you can problem solve. Whereas, you know, a self-checkout at a grocery store can't do any of that. They can only do one thing. You know, they can accurately charge for the items in the customer's grocery basket, right? But a human can do a lot more and can actually add value. So they're looking for evidence that you understand the context and purpose of the job. And they're also looking for evidence that you actually genuinely would want to do and enjoy that, doing that job. That you have a passion and interest in it, that it's not just something you're doing because you need a paycheck. They're also looking for evidence that you will do the job. So they want to make sure that there's nothing that would actually prevent you from doing the job. If you have the skills to do it, you understand the bigger context, and you are likely to find ways to add value through your work, and you really enjoy doing that work, so therefore you are going to do it. Is there anything that would prevent this person in the interview from actually doing the job. And there are things like, you know, things that you might not have thought about. First of all, can you get to the job from where you are? You know, or even things like the job requires a vehicle. Do you have a vehicle? Do you have a driver's license? You know, the job requires travel in US. Does your immigration status allow you to travel in US? So they're sort of technical nature, but also sometimes they kind of overlap with personal issues or our life situations. So I'm just going to make sure that we, yeah. Oh, okay. Fatima, I'm just going to mute you for a minute. Yeah, just sometimes, you know, you guys can all multitask while we're doing this. That's the beauty of webinars. But sometimes when you're doing that, there's some background noise. So I just muted one of the participants for a second, okay? All right, so back to, oh, sorry, I advanced. Let me go back. Okay, so back to how the employers will assess whether you will do the job. Sometimes this overlaps with sort of what our personal lives look like. So, and you know, there's sometimes conflict between our professional lives and our personal lives. Just take coronavirus, for example, right? It's created huge conflict between our personal health, wellness, and our ability to actually even show up in an office and be at work. But even under other circumstances, for example, right now, if your job will require you to work from home, you need to have certain things at home in order to be able to work from home. You need to have internet connection. You need to have perhaps your own equipment, phone, computer, etc. So those are some things that employers, you know, scan for in interviews. Are there any barriers, anything that would actually prevent this person, who looks great, by the way, but is there anything that might interfere with their ability to actually deliver, execute on what they seem perfectly qualified, trained, experienced, and willing to do, right? So for each of your jobs, assess what might be some of those things that might be in the back of the employer's mind about your ability to actually deliver on what you appear to be able to do based on your application, so that you can preempt any of their concerns by, you know, mentioning the fact that there's nothing preventing you from actually being able to get to work. If you're going in an office, get to work on time, travel, or, for example, work a flexible schedule, which is sometimes required. And personal life sometimes makes that difficult. Like if you have small children, you know, you need to be home in the evenings. So employers are not allowed to ask you, hey, do you have small kids? Because that's none of their business, and they shouldn't discriminate against potential candidates or even their employees based on their family status. But they may wonder, you know, are you able to work a flexible schedule, work evenings, or work occasional weekends? And they have a perfect right to ask you that. But sometimes employers are not well educated, and they ask that in sort of illegal ways by asking you about your marital situation or your whether you have kids or how old they are. But so you can circumvent that by, you know, by sharing some of this information yourself and saying, hey, you know, I understand this job requires evening hours, and, you know, and I have the supports I need in my personal life to allow me to be available at the schedule that the job requires, okay? And the last thing that the employer is looking to assess is whether you will fit into a team that they already have. So from the employer's perspective, they're hiring one new person or even two new people, but they're bringing them onto an existing functioning team. And the employer knows what that team is like. The employer knows what the team, how the team functions, who are the personalities on the team, what their style of working together is like. And the reason why the employer wants to know whether you will fit into that team isn't to minimize their risk. If it doesn't look like you will work well with the team just because of your personality or the way you come across in the interview, maybe you haven't done the research and you don't really understand the culture that they have at that company or even in that industry, that could spell basically a certain level of risk for the employer, because remember what they've just gone through, right? Probably a month of having a job posted, another month of interviewing candidates, 2 months of lost productivity, cost of advertising, cost of their time. And when they're ready to make the job offer, they want to stop losing money and start making money. And so if you leave the job within the first 3 months, or if they made the wrong decision and they have to let you go within the first 3 months, their costs will double and triple. And it can really affect their business negatively. So they want to make sure that this will not be a reason for you to either not work out in the job or to not be happy and decide to leave the job. And that's also why they want to make sure that you actually want to do this job, that this is where your heart is, this is where your intentions are, because that means you're more likely to stay in the job until you can become profitable for them. Because let's face it, in the first 2 months of your job, you're not really, you probably cost more than the value you add to the business. You're still, you know, getting to functioning at an optimal level in your job, because there is a learning curve. No one will train you, but you will go through a learning curve in every new job, but you'll be getting a paycheck from day one, right? So you'll get paid the same amount on day one as you will on day, 365, at which point you will be adding more value than you will be being paid, because that's how jobs work, right? But the employer will start to pay you right away. And so they want to make sure that, you will work out in the long term, because that's when you really will be adding value. Obviously, employers want you to start adding value as soon as possible, and they are looking for a person who can do that as soon as possible. The idea is that if the person can do the job, understands the job, wants to do the job, will do the job, has no barriers towards doing it, and will also work well with the team, that person is most likely to add value to that company as fast as possible, right? So that's the reasons why they're looking for those 5 things. And so why do we say all of this? Let me see what my next slide is. All right. So our job, in order to be successful in, let me move myself so that people in the recording can see this a little bit better. So our job in submitting an application and ultimately being successful in a job interview is to demonstrate all of this in our application and then also reinforce it in a job interview. So as a job seeker, you need to be asking yourself, okay, what technical skills do I really need to demonstrate in both my applications, in my resume, and also in my job interview? If I need to show the employer that I understand the industry and the company challenges and the purpose of the job, where can I then learn about my industry in Toronto? So we've already talked about this on Friday. Also, to have a successful application, you probably want to be finding a way to show passion and your ability to generate value. So showing passion for your job in your application. Yes, it's going to be in your cover letter. Thinking about, okay, what other abilities or conditions should I highlight to make sure that the employer knows that there's nothing preventing me from doing this job? And what soft skills are important in this job and why? And how can I find a way to highlight them in my applications? So the question first is to make sure that we're saying the right things to the employer, and then to find the best way of saying them in both our job applications and our interviews. So today, we're going to be looking at how specifically do we use job postings in order to identify what's in the employer's mind and how to say the right things or how to identify the right things to say or talk about in our applications, and then also later on in our job interviews. Okay? So It's all part of a process called doing your occupational research. And it's most related to the workshop we did on sort of knowing what is it that you want to, what you're looking for. You can do your occupational research by looking into job postings, professional publications, and also connecting with your professional associations and industry councils. So on Wednesday, on Friday last week, we talked more about how to use professional publications and what information you can get from associations and industry councils. Today, we're going to be looking at job postings specifically and how to identify. You can identify so much through job postings for the, again, right job title, industry, and specialization. So you're going to be able to identify the technical skills that employers are looking for, soft skills, any software that is in demand for that job title, industry, and specialization, qualifications that they're looking for, any regulations that you should be aware of, salary. This is important. One of the pre-screening interview questions you are likely to be asked is, what's your salary expectation for this opportunity, right? So you should know what the salary is for the kind of job that you're applying for, because the employers will screen you in or out based on your salary expectations, among other things. So if you make it through the ATS system and through the hiring manager's human eyes, and you are selected to be interviewed for a job interview, the first kind of call you might get is a screening interview. So let's say the hiring manager identified about 15 potential candidates to interview, and they want to narrow that list down to 7, no more. 7 people to actually interview in person or on Zoom. They will usually ask the HR or somebody else on their team to contact those 15 candidates and then to ask them some pre-screening questions. And one of the pre-screening questions will be, your salary expectations. So if you say you don't know what your salary expectations are, or you give a number that's not in line with what the market will pay for that job title and specialization, then you won't be called for the next step for the actual job interview. And job postings can also tell you about any specific tools that the employer may need you to be able to use in your job. And that can be technical tools, lab tools. It depends what your job is, right? Similar to software. And those are all described using terminology, English terminology, obviously, but also professional terminology. So QuickBooks, I don't know if it's used in Iran, but it's one of the main accounting software that is used in Canada, and QuickBooks should show up somewhere on your resume if you're an accountant or a bookkeeper looking for a job in Canada, right? Even if you've never used it, being aware that that is the software that the employers are looking for, and knowing what the software is like, getting an overview. There's so many online videos on YouTube and where you can get an orientation to QuickBooks software. So you can put on your resume that you're familiar with and experienced working with accounting software based on QuickBooks or similar to QuickBooks, right? But that makes sure that you are bringing your existing skills and representing them to employers here using the terminology that is relevant to them and that they understand. Okay, they will not know the name of the accounting software that's most used in Iran. They just will not, right? So it's your job to translate that into terms they will understand without misrepresenting anything on your resume. So I'll show you an example of how to do this in an actual job posting. But before that, we're going to be actually kind of stepping back for a minute. One thing that's really important for us to learn as job seekers is how to read job postings, how to understand and read the job posting. So we're going to be looking at these 5 topics in the next half an hour or so. First of all, what is an anatomy of a job posting? So different parts of the job posting. How to identify skills, important skills in the job posting. So we'll be doing this exercise, and I have an example, but we can also take somebody from the webinar today and try to find a job posting that's relevant to them, and then do this exercise of identifying the key technical skills in that job posting. I will also show you how to read between the lines in a job posting, how to try to pick up what's inferred, what is hinted at in a job posting, how to analyze metadata about a job posting. So that's not what's in the job posting, but other information about the job posting, like when the job was posted. And that will help you determine how much energy you should put towards applying for that specific job. And then finally, we'll look at how to leverage all this information to find the right job postings. Okay, so that's what our job is for today. And that will prepare us to, for Wednesday and Friday, very important workshops this week. One is about formatting your resume, and the other one is about actually writing your resume content. So what we're doing today here has most relation to the workshop on Friday, which is writing the content of a strong resume for your job title, industry, and specialization. Okay. So I'll get started with, first of all, the anatomy of a job posting. Most job postings have these 4 parts: company or department description, summary, job duties, responsibilities, sometimes they're called main duties, and then qualifications. So we're going to look at each of these in a little bit more detail. So first of all, the first part of a job posting is usually something about the company. So this section will provide a description of the company, but also it's kind of like job posting is also a bit of a marketing document for the company itself, right? So think of it as an online dating ad, right? It's not just who the company is, but also how the company wants to be seen and how it wants the public and its customers to see it. The implication is that the person that they hire should support and reinforce this company image, right? This is not just who they are, but also who they want to be as a company. And why is it in a job posting? Well, it's in a job posting because the right person for the job will be the person who first understands what the company is and what they want to be, and who will invest themselves into supporting that vision of who the company is and where they want to go. So it is actually important for you and for your job search. It's important for you to read this part of the job posting, but it's not enough. It's usually a 1 paragraph. It's pretty short. So you should actually research the companies that you're really interested in working for in much more detail. I have a link here to a company research form. I'm just going to click to show you a quick view of it. So the company research form asks you a lot of information about the company that you're researching. I'm not going to go through it in detail here. I'll send you the link to this, and you can copy and use this form to research the companies. But some of the things that will ask you to research about the company is location, how many people work at this company, and you'll see in brackets here that there are tips about where you can find this information. So number of staff, you can get it from most directories. You can also get it from LinkedIn, although the number of people on with LinkedIn accounts and the number of people who work at a specific company is not always the same, but it's close. Annual sales of the company is important for assessing sort of how successful they are and how much revenue they generate when it was established. What are its main products and services? Who are its target market or target clients? What technologies do they use? Can you find any examples of projects they completed recently? Can you find any examples of its current or upcoming projects? And again, here, there's tips on how to do that. Are they a subsidiary of another company? Have they recently been acquired by another company, or have they acquired other companies in the recent past? Is there a LinkedIn page that the company has, and what can you learn from it? And so most importantly, look at the number of people who work at that company. And I'll show you how to actually research those people's LinkedIn profiles to get more strategic information that will help you position yourself better in your job search. So going back to our presentation, it's important to read the company description on the job posting. It's important to approach your application for a job with the mindset of wanting to support, being aware of and wanting to support that company description of themselves. But for you as a job seeker, it's also important to do more in-depth company research. And how can you then leverage this in your job search? Well, this information will be very valuable to you when you're writing your cover letter, which most job seekers struggle with because resume is a very formulaic document. You know exactly what you have to say and what sections there are, right? Whereas cover letter is a more free-flowing kind of document, a letter. And this information about the company will be one of the things that you can showcase in your cover letter. So you can leverage it in your cover letter, and you can also leverage it in the interview. So one of the very common interview questions is, tell me what you know about our company. Well, if you only know what you read in the job posting, you're not going to stand out that well beside other candidates that are interviewing for the job. But if you do know a lot more through your research, that will definitely score you points in a job interview. So that's section number one, about the company or the department. Usually they describe the department where the company is really big and it's not that relevant for you to understand, you know, a multinational, very complex company, but it's really relevant for you to understand your department better. The next section is usually the summary. And the summary, oops, let me just go back for a second. The summary describes the purpose of the job. This is so important. And I think most job seekers, including me in the early days of my job search, when I was just a new graduate and looking for jobs, I would completely kind of ignore this section because I didn't understand what the purpose was. Well, the summary describes the purpose of the job. It tells you why the job exists and what its goals are. This is so important because it will help you to talk about the right things on your resume and in your interview. So you bring a lot of skills to any job, but which ones to showcase and how, which skills to focus on will really be guided by the goals or the purpose of the job. So this summary will help you to showcase skills in your resume that are related to achieving goals that are similar to the goals of the position that you're applying to. So you'll be, when you're thinking back about your past experience, you try to prioritize talking about experiences where you use the skills that achieve goals that are similar to the goals of the job you're applying for. When employers hear this, this is music to their ears, because there's no better proof of you being able to do something that they need done with positive results than your past experience of doing something similar with similar results. That's as close as they can get to proving that you have the skills and that you will be successful in the job, right? So it's very important to understand the summary or to read the summary, to understand the goals and purpose of the position, because it will help us to prioritize the skills that we'll be talking about in your resume, and also to make sure that we mention those positive outcomes. We now know what the positive outcomes are that the employer is looking for, okay? And so we'll be able to showcase those similar kinds of outcomes in your application. It's also really important when it comes to a job interview. So you may be asked some of these questions or all of these questions in a job interview. In your own words, what is your understanding of this position? The employer wants to hear that you understand the job. And part of this answer will be in the summary part of the job posting. They may say to you, what challenges do you anticipate in the first 2 months on this job, and how would you deal with them? Without really understanding the purpose and the goals of the job, it's very hard to answer this well. Or they might just say, why should we hire you? And the answer to why should we hire you is always because you can meet and exceed the goals of the position, but you should know what they are so that you can give concrete reassurance to the employer that you, number one, know the goals, and two, have reached similar goals in the past, right? So reading those sections of the job posting in detail and understanding them can really, translate into improving many parts of your job search. So we talked about how to read about the company, how to read and understand the summary of the job posting. And sometimes job postings will not give you a good summary, or they will not tell you exactly the goals of the position. Well, if you find that you cannot really get at this information in job postings, the job postings are not doing a good job of really unearthing, identifying, hinting at what's really important to the employer about this job, what their goals are with regards to this job position, then this is a great question to make a note of and to ask in information interviews. So on Friday, we talked about how you can use information interviews to meet people in your industry, to get them to know about you, but also to learn more about the kind of job that you are hoping to do in the future. Well, this is a great interview question. You can say, okay, so so you could say something like this. Let's say that you are, let's say that you're an accountant, okay? And you're looking to work in a manufacturing company. And this is really your experience in the past. You've had a similar experience. But you're in a new country, in a new regulatory context, and working with people in a different kind of business culture. So you could ask somebody who is also an accountant and ideally works in production, in manufacturing, in some kind of an industrial facility. You could say to them, I understand from my research, I can clearly understand what are some of the key skills that I need to have for this job. And they are very aligned with the skills that I've used in my past. What I want to understand better is, what are some of the business goals that my job would help a Canadian employer achieve, given the regulations that apply to accounting and to manufacturing, given the industry, the manufacturing industry sector in Canada? What are some challenges or problems that this type of business has that my role could help to solve? That's a great information interview question, right? And it will give you this information that you will then use in your job interviews, and also use it to inform how you put together your job applications. This is golden knowledge. And if you're not getting it from job postings, then you can look to get it through information interviews. Another way of getting it is through searching profiles, LinkedIn profiles of people with the same job title who work in the same industry or even at the same company, especially before a job interview, right? Because LinkedIn profiles of people with the same job title at the same company will, depending on how much detail they've put in their LinkedIn profiles, will tell you, first of all, those are people that the employer has already hired. So those are people who've gone through the whole process you're currently trying to get through, which is finding the job posting, applying for it, being selected for the interview, interviewing, they've already done that successfully, have been hired, and in most cases, if they've been there over 6 months, they are successful in their role. So reading about is what is it that they do in their job, if they provided that description in their profiles, will give you another layer of understanding that job, right? Put in different words than the employer perhaps has done in the job posting. So that's another way of getting at what's the purpose of this job? What is in it for the employer? So it's looking at it from the employer's perspective. Okay, let's go to the next part of the job posting, job duties or responsibilities. Now, in the early days when I was still, you know, a young job coach and looking for jobs, this is the only section I used to pay attention to. And it is really the meat of the job posting. This is where all the technical skills are highlighted. This section tells you what needs to be done, right? So if the summary section tells you why something needs to be done, this section tells you exactly what needs to be done. What are the activities that need to be performed on this job? And so by showing the employer that you can do all of that, you're basically telling them you can do the job. So your job now as a job seeker is to carefully read and highlight every technical skills that you find in a job posting in this section, in job duties, responsibilities. Don't skip over any terms that you don't understand, especially the ones that you don't understand. Research them, because that's likely Canadian professional terminology that you've never used before, but that your employers use to describe the skills. And so you need to adopt this terminology and start using it. Also notice the order that the skills are listed in. The more important skills are going to be listed towards the top of the job duties responsibility section, the less important skills towards the bottom. How are you going to apply this to your job search? This applies 100% to your resume writing. Identifying those technical skills will help you to describe your own experience with every technical skill in the job posting. And how will you do this? There's a formula. You will use strong skill statement formula, which I will tell you about in the Write Your Resume workshop. So when we meet again on Friday to talk about how to write the content of your resume, it will be informed by the technical skills that you've identified through job postings for your industry specialization and job title, or your job title, industry, and specialization. But how you will actually write it, I'll show you the formula that you will use to make sure that you're saying the right things and also in the most impactful way in your resume when it comes to your ability to do the job, so your technical skills. The other section of a job posting, the last section usually are qualifications. Now, I find among my newcomer or internationally trained professional job seekers, many of them go to the qualification section first and say, okay, if I have the qualifications, I should apply for the job. But as we mentioned in the first of our workshop series, employers in Canada value your ability to do things and your past experience, generally speaking, above your qualifications. Unless the qualifications are a must. If a job posting says CHRPA membership is a must, then it's a black and white. There's no way around it. And that's Canadian Human Resources Professional Association membership, for example, is a must. It's a must. If you don't have it, don't waste your time applying. You will not be called for an interview. But unless it says it's a must, qualifications are a way for employers to kind of say, well, someone who has this qualification should be able to do this job. So oftentimes you'll see that employers are saying, okay, well, I think somebody with a degree in anthropology or psychology or another discipline. So they have a few options. or they will say, or equivalent education and experience, meaning they're flexible. They're flexible. They're not flexible when it comes to your ability to do the job, but they're generally flexible when it comes to how you obtain those skills through training. It can be different kinds of training. And so as long as you think that you can do the job and you have the technical, the hard skills to do the job, you should apply, unless the qualification that the employer mentions is a must and you don't have it. If you don't have it, don't waste your time. But if you have it, great. You have the qualification and you have the skills. Generally, those skills are more valuable to employers. This section also contains information about any knowledge you should have. So knowledge is different from skill. Knowledge is usually theoretical, knowing something, knowing the content of something. And skills are ability to apply that knowledge to get a specific outcome, right? So that's the difference between skill and knowledge. So qualification section will sometimes identify knowledge you should have. So like the knowledge of the Environmental Assessment Act. That's not a skill, that's knowledge. You need to know that it exists, what's the content of it, what situation does it apply to, etc. So you should highlight you should highlight any knowledge you notice in the qualification section, any licenses or certifications or other training, or sometimes also other requirements are put in this section, like ability to travel internationally, flexible work schedule, driver's license. They will also be mentioned in the qualification section. And you will apply this to your job search. Some of this information will go into your highlights of qualifications or into your profile section of your resume. And we'll be going in detail into this section on Wednesday when we meet again, when we talk about how to format your resume. And that workshop will be all about the sections of the resume and what goes into those sections and how those individual sections are formatted as well. Okay. So now that we've kind of dissected the job posting, we looked at what are its main parts and what's the relative importance of different parts of a job posting. We also want to try to kind of read between the lines in a job posting, okay? So I'm going to give you a list of questions to ask yourself when you are reading a job posting, to help you read between the lines, read things that are not specifically spelled out in a job posting. So one of the questions you can ask is, that we already asked is, why does this job posting exist? From the employer's perspective. Perhaps let's not say the job posting, because I'm not talking about why is the job available. I'm talking about what's the purpose of this job within the employer's company and what business goals is it trying to reach. Okay, so you should ask yourself and see if you can answer it after reading the job posting. The next thing you should ask yourself is, okay, so I know what goals the job is trying to achieve. What are the problems that this job is trying to solve? And again, think from the business perspective, from the employer's perspective. It may not be obvious, so for example, a marketing job is obviously trying to enhance brand recognition, okay? But why? What is the problem that brand recognition is solving for the employer? So I'll give you some examples just to get you thinking, right? Is this job trying to clear a bottleneck a process bottleneck that exists in the company and that's causing problems? And what kind of problems is that bottleneck causing in the company? And so sometimes companies start to grow suddenly. They experience massive growth, but they actually don't have they're not organized and structured to support that growth. And they need to hire people with certain technical skills, but the business reason for hiring them is to clear a bottleneck to make the whole operation more efficient, right? So if you're not aware of this, you may not present yourself in the most appealing way on your application, but especially in the interview. when the employer will try to understand, do you get it? Do you get the purpose of this job and how you can add value to our company and how you can, you know, what our problems are, what our pain points, what keeps us up at night, right? Sometimes the purpose of the job is to keep the status quo. That could be the important thing from the business perspective to the employer. And so if you come into that interview and you tell them about all the amazing things that you can change and do differently, run away, because they might actually think, oh, this person is great, but they're not for us, because they're not aligned in what they want to do with what the reason is for us to bring this person on board. Sometimes though, the employers are looking to improve upon things. And so these are questions you need to ask yourself as you're reading the job posting. What is the problem that the position is trying to solve? And then why does this problem exist? Can you infer what are some conditions or reasons that gave rise to this problem for the employer? And the employer will often hint about those things in the job posting. They will hint at it, but they will not often spell it out directly. And so I'll show you some ways that they hint at it in a job posting and how to catch those hints. And then also ask yourself, okay, how does this job work with other positions or company departments or customers? What are the other parties that this job interfaces with, and how? And then also ask yourself, well, what are the people like at this company? What are the people like who work there? And some of the, you know, I mean, you can think about many ways of describing people. So how old are they? You know, is everybody over 50? That tells you something about the culture of the organization. But also, you know, where do they all go to school? Are they educated inside Canada or outside of Canada? Pay attention to that. Companies that have hired people who are educated outside of Canada already are much more likely to hire internationally trained professionals than those who have never done that. Everybody went to school, to university in Canada somewhere, or even locally in Toronto or, you know, the southeastern Ontario. So pay attention to that. It can give you a sense of how you would fit in. How long do employees generally tend to stay at the company? That also can tell you a bit about the culture of the company. And if they, you know, have worked in other positions before, kind of what part of their career path are they doing at this company? Is it this entry-level job? You know, do people tend to start at this company? Do they come here after 10 years of experience? So ask yourself these questions to kind of create a mental picture of what it would be like to work there, and to create a mental picture of the people that you might be working with, and to prepare yourself for those interactions, because those are the people that are going to be in the interview with you, right? Some of them, they're going to be sitting in the interview with you. So the more prepared you are for what they're like, what they look like, how old are they, how long they've been there, kind of what their career has looked like, etc., the more prepared you'll be to have an effective conversation with them. All right, so let's look at an example. We're going to look at an example of how to do all of this. So different parts of a job posting, and also reading between the lines. So we're going to try and do that in an example of a project coordinator job posting. It's a 12-month contract. It's at the Ontario Tourism Education Corporation. Okay, so I don't have any metadata here because it's just a snapshot of the job posting. So I'm not focusing right now on when the job was posted or any metadata. I'm just looking at the actual content of the job posting. So as you see, the job posting starts with the description of the company. And it's short, but it does provide, it's packed full of information and terms that are a little bit vague, and it would serve you well to research those in more detail. So they say about themselves that they're a nonprofit organization. Well, that's something you should actually make a note of. nonprofits are different than for-profits in different ways, or at least they believe they're different. So if you've ever worked at a nonprofit, that's a point of connection. That's a point of overlap between your past experience and this job. It's a plus to mention, right? That you worked at a nonprofit before. That's industry. The industry in this case is nonprofit. So if you have the same industry experience, that's something you should actually make a note of and find a way to emphasize on your application and your resume and in your cover letter. Now they tell you what their goals are. So their goals is to enhance the growth of a professional and skilled tourism workforce. And specifically not in Canada, only in Ontario. So this is a very big picture statement, right? It's too big to really mean anything specific. Like, how do they do that? We should dig deeper to understand a little bit more, right? Then they tell you a little bit about how they do that in the next paragraph. So they offer strategic guidance. So they have clients. They offer clients, and they have clients. So question for yourself is, oh, who are the clients? Ask yourself, they have clients. Well, can I identify who their clients are from this job posting? No, but if I use my company research form, it will ask me, oh, who are their clients? Well, then I'm going to go to their website and I'm going to identify actually the types of clients that they deal with. And then when I'm asked in a job interview, what do you know about our company? I will impress them with my knowledge that's well beyond what they mentioned in the job posting. So they work with clients and partners. Who are their partners? Can you identify a few from their website? So what they offer, the services are guidance, resources, and support with program and project implementation. Again, all right, what kinds of programs and projects? Can you find an example of their past programs and projects? That's their service is guidance, resource, and support, but what kind of programs and projects are they talking about? Ask yourself and do a little bit more research on this. They especially highlight one of their products, which is their Tourism SkillNet Ontario Alliance, okay? I don't know much more than what I'm reading here, but if you're looking to apply for this job, research this alliance. Type it into Google. Let's read about it. What is it? What award did it win? When did it win it? Why did it win it? Why is it important to this organization? What does it give them? Does it give them reputation? Is it a source of revenue? Try to understand it below the surface, right? This is why you're this is also reading between the lines, right? Especially when you come to these vague statements, you can fill it in by doing additional research. So this Tourism SkillsNet Alliance is a single framework that aligns industry, education, employment, and training stakeholders. It enables them to develop recruitment and training models aligned with the skills needed by the business. Okay, so this tells me something. Even if I never have worked in tourism, right? But I have project management skills and project coordination skills, and I worked in nonprofits. So I want to apply for this job. What this statement is telling me is that one of the problems that this organization is trying to solve is recruitment and training for the tourism sector, so that their clients actually have the problem of recruiting and training the employees. And that is what this organization is trying to solve. So we identified a problem and one of the goals that this organization is trying to achieve through the job posting. We can go deeper. Why is this a problem in Ontario? Why is recruitment and training of tourism workforce a problem? Knowing that would prepare you for the job. I want you to already see yourself as doing the job when you're looking at the job posting, right? That's how far you need to look in order to be to put together a successful job application. And it will also prepare you for the job interview. So don't just look at it mechanically, like, I'm going to put this word in, I'm going to put this word in. No, try to really imagine the job and imagine yourself in it. Ask the questions you would want to know if you were actually to do this job, and try to answer them. That will help you to really put together a much stronger application that can almost, you know, if I was your job search coach and we had a contract, I would say guarantee you an interview. But here I'm just giving you the skills that you can implement to help do that without actually working with somebody that's, you know, individually coaching you to get interviews. Okay, so this gives you an idea of sort of what that company description looks like, and then how you would go about reading it and what questions you would ask along the way as you read the company description. Next, position summary. Okay, so this job posting does provide a position summary, and it tells us a few things. So again, I'm going to show you here how to read between the lines. So the first thing the employer tells us is a 12-month contract. But the second thing they tell us, there's a possibility of more, right? 12-month contract is not bad. That's great. Most jobs will start as contracts. Permanent full-time employment is very hard to come by these days. Most of our opportunities that you will get, especially if you don't have, you know, very, very highly targeted related experience locally, is going to be a contract. So this is not a bad thing. But they both say, hey, it's a contract, but then they provide a carrot to the potential job seeker, the potential candidate, saying there is more than 12 months that's accessible, but we're going to start with 12 months. So this is the carrot: move to permanent full-time employment, which is very desirable because it has job security, it has benefits, it has vacation, it has other perks that come with being a permanent full-time employee, right? So it gives you an idea of kind of the fact that the employer is looking to retain somebody longer term. They want somebody who's willing to do a contract, but who's also interested in something longer term, because they're providing that not once, but twice as kind of like a carrot for the right candidate in this job posting. Then they go on to talk about what is the purpose of this job. So the purpose is to assist with the execution of a rapid response strategy that's going to help the sector, the whole tourism sector, understand the impact of COVID-19 crisis on its industry and its workers and businesses. Okay, so this is a very, very current project. It's relating to exactly what's going on right now. And rapid response strategy. So you're picking up a few clues from here. This is something that has to happen quickly. There is a crisis, because we know there's a word crisis in it. It's a crisis, right? It's something that's very time sensitive, that is needs to be delivered quickly, it needs to be delivered well, and needs to alleviate. If it's a crisis, we need to improve things. We need to set the stage for making things better. So this job, there's a lot of writing on this job, right? There is a crisis. We don't want another crisis by this project failing. The crisis is already there. COVID-19 has created a crisis in the tourism and hospitality sector. We need this project to be fast, effective, and to provide solutions to a crisis. Right? So that's the context. So it's really important for you as a job seeker to understand that as you prepare to write the application for it. But again, the employer says, hey, but it's a progressive role, right? We're not just looking to bring somebody in, get them to do this like 12-month project and then goodbye. There is room for growth within our organization, they say, right? So you see how the job posting is actually also marketing the company in itself to the right candidate. And it tells you about the kinds of opportunities for advancement that can exist there. Okay, and they mentioned passion. Remember I said employers are looking for somebody with a passion to do the job? Well, here it is. You won't be able to mention your passion in your resume, but you'll definitely be able to mention it in your cover letter, right? And so it tells you what kind of passion they want you to have. Not general passion, but passion for specifically supporting employability solutions and reducing barriers to participation in the labor market of underrepresented groups. So I would take notes of this and find ways of showing this in my cover letter, that I have this kind of passion, using those words and providing examples from my past experience. So we're now going to look at, okay, the next section, which is job duties, or let me just zoom out for a second. We're going to be looking at job duties. So this part, identifying technical skills, right, in the job duties section. But before we do that, I want to give you a quick overview of what technical skills are and what soft skills are. So we looked at the company description in this example. We looked at the job summary, right, to understand the context and the purpose of the job. And now we're going to look at the next section, which is main duties or responsibilities. And in that section, we're looking for technical skills that they need, that a person in this job will need to execute the job. So we need to be able to, first of all, understand what a skill is, what is the difference between technical skills and soft skill, and then how to, and be able to identify technical skills in the job posting. So first of all, a skill is your ability, like I mentioned earlier, to do something, to apply, to actually do something almost hands-on, right? It's not knowledge, it's your ability to do something. And so therefore, it always starts with a verb. It starts with a verb and it answers the question, what? I should have given you an example there. So for example, okay, I'm just trying to think of an example. Lead marketing campaigns. Okay, it's not a great example because it's pretty big. It's a big kind of big skill that has many smaller skills in it. But the idea is lead marketing campaigns. Lead is a verb. And what? Marketing campaigns. So that would be a technical skill. Right? Technical skills are always found in main duties. They're occupation specific. So you would use them to do that specific job. They're generally not too transferable outside of those jobs. So accounting skills are not that transferable outside of accounting field, right? Engineering skills, not that transferable outside of engineering skills. The technical engineering skills, like designing electrical transmission diagrams, it's very hard to use that skill for something else other than exactly that technical purpose. Those skills are usually, technical skills are usually obtained through training and education. And the technical skills, if you have them, prove to the employer that you can do the job. The technical skills are the main part of your resume. So that's where you're going to use them. Soft skills, on the other hand, are skills that we use to respond in specific situations, to respond to specific situations that occur, usually complex situations. So that involve processes and people. Soft skills are skills that we use in working with others and in solving more complex problems that can include technical aspects, but they're not just technical, right? There's another component, there's another part of it, there's another aspect to the technical. So again, take the example of the self-checkout at a grocery store, right? The self-checkout can only perform the technical job, but you need a person to solve the typical problems that occur when people are cashing out of a grocery store, right? Like wrong price, people are in a rush, there's a long lineup. Those are all, you need soft skills to deal with those problems. Self-checkout, absolutely not able to do that. In Canada though, keep in mind that even for very technical roles like programmer, coder, software designer, software developer, technical skills are equally important to employers as soft skills, or rather, soft skills are equally important to employers as the technical skills for the job. Technical skills will get you the interview, soft skills will get you the, technical skills will get you the interview, soft skills will get you the job. Remember I said by the time you come to a job interview, the employer is already kind of bought into the fact that you most likely have the skills you need to do the job. Now they want to confirm that you also have the soft skills to apply those technical skills successfully in their specific context on the kind of projects that they're working with the kind of stakeholders that they're working with, and solving the kind of problems that are likely to come up in that job. We have 2 workshops that are going to greatly help you understand what kinds of soft skills are important in the Canadian context. The first one, Canadian culture and soft skill, Canadian culture. And I think it's called Introduction to Canadian Culture, and we're offering it on the 28th of July. I will resend the flyer after this workshop so you guys can register for it. I have a link now with the registration link in the flyer. And on the 30th of July, the last day, second last day of the month, we will be doing a workshop on soft skills in the workplace. And both of these will be delivered by somebody who is specifically focusing this in her career and is currently volunteering with us. And she's developed these 2 workshops that we've looked at, and they're really high quality. So I think it's going to be very valuable for you guys to attend them. All right, so we've looked at what skills are, what technical skills are, and what soft skills are. Let's now look at how to identify technical skills in an actual job posting. So here is that same job posting, project coordinator. And this is the first part of the job duties of the job posting. And notice that under job duties, this employer has kind of chunked out the job duties under different subtitles. So this one is under the subtitle of project coordinator. So all of the technical skills in this posting here relate to project coordination. But there's another section that we're actually going to look online because I didn't have time to actually analyze it before the workshop. But for this one, so project coordination, I've highlighted in yellow all the technical skills, except that this one, the first one, doesn't actually start with a verb, but it does start with a verb. It says participate in project launch meetings. So what is the skill? The skill is to participate. But I didn't highlight participate because chances are you're going to have to run those meetings, right? You're going to have to take significant responsibility for those meetings. And the reason I think that is because it's the first skill in the job posting. When you're participating, you're not leading something, right? So it's unlikely that you will actually just be participating. You'll have to take significant responsibility for these project launch meetings. So I didn't highlight participate, so we need a verb. So I would just replace it with lead project launch meetings. Okay, so the skill is lead or coordinate, even better, because it's more in line with the job title, coordinate project launch meetings. So that would be the skill. The next one would be project planning. And again, the verb there is participate, but because it's the first skill in the job posting, I would probably say your responsibility will be beyond participation. So perhaps coordinate project planning. Okay, so that's a technical skill. Coordinate is the verb, project planning is what. And so as you go on, you'll notice that all of the other ones pretty much start with a verb. So execute against project sub-plans, execute against project budgets, and execute against project timelines. So the skills are all really project management and project coordination related. Monitor project information, collect project information, prepare progress reports. So all of these are technical skills, but I've highlighted things in two other colors, green, and even though this starts with a verb, it's not exactly a skill because it tells you why something needs to be done. So this job posting is telling you something about the goals of the position, or at least of a specific skill they've mentioned here. So they say, why are you doing this? Well, to inform ongoing planning and implementation. Right? So you're collecting project information, you're preparing progress reports in order to make sure this project is on track. And I think it's really important because this is a fast track project. It's addressing a crisis. We don't want to get off track. We want to make sure we achieve the project goals in the least amount of time possible, but we do it well. Therefore, we are going to monitor, collect information, and have frequent reports to make sure that implementation and planning is going well, as efficiently and as quickly as possible. You're also going to coordinate field testing. You're going to ensure secure data collection. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. See, even I was doing this quickly. So not a big mistake, but what I didn't see is that they tell you another why. So why do you need to ensure secure data collection? Because there's something called the evaluation framework. So that already exists, and you need to be familiar with the evaluation framework that's set up for this project and with the requirements for secure data collection. Okay, so this is also the how. So how are you going to, and both the how and why, how are you going to ensure secure data collection? Well, you're going to refer to the evaluation framework that will tell you what the requirements are around security of data. And the blue highlight sort of answers the question, why are we doing this? What is, sorry, I think I made a mistake. So the green is, why are we doing it? And the blue is also telling you how. So if you are using any additional tools or resources or information in order to implement the skills. So the skill of supporting or administering of invoices, expenses, and revenue allocation. How are you doing to do that? According to the plans and contracts that exist, right? So they're telling you what tools or resources you will use in order to execute some of these skills. So as you can see, we're really looking at this in detail. We're highlighting all the technical skills, but we're also highlighting anything else that's important that the job posting tells us about why we're doing something, or how we're doing it, what tools or resources we're using to do it. The reason for doing this is that if your resume contains not just this terminology, but examples of launch meetings you have coordinated in the past, or examples of how you ensure the project was on budget and on time, right? Then as a job coach, I can almost guarantee that you will get an interview. Unless, you know, there are 100 people who can do exactly that and who have put together that strong an application as well. For positions at this level, that usually is not the case. They're not 100 people. And even if they were, most of them don't put together a good application. So provided that you have the skills, you understand what skills they are looking for, you use that terminology, and you provide relevant examples from your experience, I can almost guarantee that it will result in a job interview. And that's what you want. Once you're in a job interview, you're that much, you know, you're that much closer to a job offer than when you're just applying for jobs. Let me move on to actually show you the other part of this job posting. So we're going to finish up hopefully on time today, maybe just a few minutes past 1 o'clock, but I want to show you another part of this job posting. So just give me a minute. Where, oops, I think this is the job posting. No, here we are. Okay. So far we've looked at project coordination, right? But there's more to this job posting. There's stakeholder relations. And so establishing working relationships with internal and external stakeholders, demonstrating customer orientation, providing clear communication, seeking opportunities to collaborate, right? Some of these sound like soft skills, but they are soft skills. They are actually soft skills, but those soft skills are crucial for this job. And then there's some more technical skills that have to do with research and knowledge management, and then some more to do with general administration, and then finally competencies and skills. So again, you focus on the job duties, the responsibility section, to identify as many technical skills as possible. Given the time, I'm not going to go and dig more technical skills up, but you will need those technical skills. You need them identified by the time we start to work on writing your resume content, because that's what you will be writing about. So we need a good list of the technical skills, and not just from one job posting, but from, I would say, at least 5 really targeted job posting for your job title, industry, and specialization. So you'll find those 5 really strong job postings. And that's the last thing I wanted to show you, is how do you find really highly targeted job postings. So when I said find more job opportunities, I did mean more, but I didn't just mean more of any kind of job opportunities, but more of the right job opportunities. And that might actually mean that you're applying to less jobs, but that you're getting a bigger return on your application. In other words, you're getting more interviews per number of applications that you're sending out. So given who is with us today, I'm just going to have a quick look at everybody who is with us today, and maybe we'll use somebody. Okay, I'm going to use Tariq, because from yesterday's conversation, I know that he's looking for something related to brand, marketing, brand management, and that he is a marketing. Tariq, feel free to jump in with your job title if you're there.
Brand manager.
Brand manager. Okay, so marketing brand manager. Okay, so we're going to go to Indeed. Okay, so here I am. I'm already in Indeed. I'm going to just put in, to get started, pretty easy. Just exactly that, marketing brand manager. Okay. So I'm going to say find jobs. And what I'm going to get now is 769 jobs. That's not a good start. I don't have time to look through 96 jobs, no. we need a narrower list. And that's where our specialization comes in. So Tariq, can you tell us, for example, I know you were looking at consumer goods, right? So is that still the focus of your job search in terms of the industry?
Right.
Yes? Okay, so I'm going to say advanced job search. I'm going to use advanced job search. And so I'm going to add to this exact phrase, consumer goods. I want this phrase to be in the job posting. The reason I didn't put it here is because then it would look for word consumer and goods separately. I want consumer goods to be together. And now I'm going to redo the search and say find jobs. I'm leaving everything else the same. Look at the number of jobs we got. This is better. Chances are, perhaps, that most of these might be the right jobs for Tariq, and he doesn't have to look through 196. But we're going to go even deeper. We'll find one of these that actually looks like the best on the list. So Tariq, from this list, we have Dermalogica, Red Bull, Colgate, a vaping company, and not all of them are the title that you want. Spin Master, something a bit fishy looking. Which one that looks the best for you?
The first one seems
more
coherent. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more coherent. So we're going to go into it. And again, right now, we're actually not going to be focusing on applying for this job. We're going to focus on researching this job so that we can find the hook terms that are going to help us pull up more targeted jobs in our next search. So here we're going to read again the job posting, but focus on the duties and responsibilities. Look for technical terms that would appear in this job posting, assuming that this is a really good fit, right? So assuming, yep, this is like one of the top, 5% of jobs that Tariq wants to apply to. Look for technical terms that would appear in this job that would likely not appear in other jobs.
So we have few ones like marketing plan. Please, can you go down a little bit?
Okay.
Yeah, some of the keywords that pop up, we have marketing plans, product launches, trade promotions, execution, strategic development,
okay,
brand awareness, etc.
Great. Now, all of those keywords you mentioned are specific to this job, but unfortunately, they also show up in quite a number of other jobs. So marketing plans can appear in brand manager job, but they can also appear in marketing associate job. They'll just change and say assist with marketing plans or research for marketing plans, right? So marketing plan is going to pull up jobs in marketing, but not at the level that you want, and not necessarily focus on the brand. When you're looking at this job posting, you want to try to find one or two or more, if you're lucky, terms that really are specific to brand, marketing, and to the level of the job that you are targeting. So if you look at this job posting now with through those glasses, can you find something that's more specific?
Yes, first I can see brand health, which is a global term. And,
yes. Good. So you can write that down as a potential term to use, brand health. Yeah. What about SKU management? What's that?
SKU is the line of products that are under a brand. For example, you have chewing gum, but you have chewing gum with different flavors in different formats.
Right.
These are the variants.
So so this is a very detailed, narrow skill. Would this appear in 99% of brand management job postings for consumer products or not?
Yes, yes. It is
Yes, it
proper
would.
to brand management. Yes, it is proper to brand management only.
So let's look at that as well. Let's put that aside as another potential keyword or like a hook word that we're going to use to put in our search engine to pull up more of the right job postings. So we have brand health, SKU management. I'm just also looking at retail. ROIs and KPIs would be more management related for sure, right? Because that's a management duty. Brand positioning. Okay. And let me see if there is anything else that's very, very specific. Nope, I don't see it. Okay, let's try with this now. We're going to go back to Indeed and see if we can, because earlier we got a list of 12 jobs, but to be honest, half of them were not the right jobs, right? Because there was financial analyst and other types of jobs. They were just head of on-premise. What is that?
No idea.
It's not really marketing. Sales associate is not marketing, it's sales. Distribution sales, so something didn't work about our search. I want to get only jobs, like 12 jobs that are exactly what you're looking for. So we go back to advanced job search and we'll play around with these terms. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to take this and we're going to put it in the title. We want brand to be in the job title, right? And we're not even going to put manager right now. Like, because if there is a brand coordinator job, would you take it, Tariq?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? So let's not limit ourselves just to manager. So we have consumer goods. Let's look for SKU management. This may be the wrong word. Actually, you know what? I'm going to just, first of all, leave consumer goods and brand and just see what happens when we change that around. We put brand in the title and see what happens. You got one job. That's no good. So brand in the job title is not the right thing because it's too limiting. So let's go back. We'll remove the brand.
Maybe in the exact word, you can try words like CPG, FMCG instead of consumer goods to may broaden the research.
Oh, okay. So we can add that. CPG. What else?
FMCG.
FMCG.
G.
Okay. And we'll put it like this so they know those are separate terms. Okay. So we want brand. We want manager as well. Okay. Let's put also so we had SKU. Okay, let's try this. So we're going to get, no, this is going to be a problem because it's going to look for all of these. And we already know it's not going to find any. But if we just leave this and we change, let's see what else we get. We get 2 jobs. Okay, and one of them is interesting, Tariq. Okay, so now we have 3. Are you able to do an analyst job?
Yes, it is a small part of the global brand management.
Would you do it though as, is it a good entry into the field for you? It doesn't have to be. I'm not in the business of convincing people to take lower level jobs than they should. But it depends sort of how quickly the career progression would happen and how you feel about it. Is this something that would be a good entry into the field or not?
Yes. Yes? It is doable, yeah.
Okay, so then include this as well. Include these kinds of, so you're expanding your job search a little bit. And that's one of my questions. When you put manager, you know, are you limiting yourself to that? Are you limiting yourself to assistant manager? Like, can you expand to assistant manager and to jobs that would lead to that opportunity, right? So we've identified, you know, the brand manager, that's one. Your resume for analyst consumer insights would look a little bit different. Actually, this is the same job, right? So I would now do the research of this one, also technical skills. So look at this, brand equity tracking. Now this is a very technical, very narrow technical skill that you can now use to find more analyst, consumer insight analyst jobs, right? So you use this as a keyword because this is not going to be in any other job posting than really something very, very close or exactly analyst, consumer insights. Advertising testing studies, again, right? See how those jobs that are at a little bit lower level have more specific technical skills described in them? Because managers are not going to do this. They will work with the results of this, but they will not actually implement the tracking and the testing studies. However, the people in a slightly lower position will be doing hands-on work. And these are very highly and very narrowly technical skills that I'm sure that if I put advertising testing studies in Indeed under find this phrase, I might find, you know, 20 analyst jobs. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. It's a more thoughtful approach to job search, yeah.
Right, so it generates more opportunities. And, you know, one of the things you could be asking in information interviews is, well, you know, my experience is as a brand manager. However, you know, I realize it may be a bit of a steep climb to get into that role as my first opportunity. You know, what would the career path look like from something like an analyst role, right, to a brand manager for somebody with my experience? So I'm not a new graduate, right? I have the experience. What might that career path towards the brand manager look like? How long might it take? You know, what are some strategic things I can do along the way to make sure that I shorten that path? Those are really great informational interview questions to ask, you know, as you network with people, because then you get to tell them about experience you already have, but also about the more narrow technical skills that, you know, could enable you to do a position that's not exactly at the level of your last job. So the lesson in this is, and I can go over this when we meet again on Wednesday, is the skill of using keywords, very narrowly technical keywords, in order to, through on a job bank like Indeed, to surface more relevant, highly relevant jobs to your job title, industry, and specialization. I think a lot of job seekers spend a lot of time, you know, going through that initial list of 796 jobs. That's not a starting point you should be starting from. You need to surface more jobs that are really targeted to where your strengths are, that we've identified as your job title, industry, and specialization. Okay, so that's the work you want to be doing between now and Friday. By Friday, we're going to be working on this, developing the content of your resume for that job title, specialization, in industry based on the technical skills you've identified in job postings for that job title, specialization, and industry. Okay, so the job now is to find more of those very specific job postings by using those very narrow technical keywords that you find. So your job is kind of find as close as possible, a job posting that's as close as possible, and keep using those keywords until what you're surfacing are the most relevant jobs where you're going to be the strongest candidate, most likely, and definitely have the best application when you finish the workshop series. Okay.